St. Peter, I'm sure you've heard of him, was standing at the pearly gates checking people in. Wasn't a very long line. And he needed a break. He had some errands to run. And so he saw Jesus walking by. He says, "Hey, young fella, come over here and help me. Can you stand here and check people in? I've got to go run an errand and I'll be right back." He said, "Well, what do I do?" He says, "Oh, it's really simple. When they come up to the gate, just ask them who they are. What do they do for a living? You know, just kind of make conversation. Ask them about their family. And then based on what they say, you can decide whether you'll let them in or not." Jesus said, "Okay, I can do that." So this real old man comes up to the pearly gates, and he's walking with a cane, and he's really slow. And Jesus said, "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" He says, "Well, I need to get in. I have a reservation." He said, "Well, come and sit down." He sits him down at the examining table, and he says, "So tell me, sir, what is your name?" "Well, you don't need to know my name. I have a new name now. I'll be given when I get to the pearly gates. Just let me in." He says, "Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. You have a family? What'd you do for a living?" He said, "I was a carpenter." Jesus got really interested because that was his background. His father was a carpenter. So he said, "Oh," he said, "Do you have any children?" He said, "I have one son, but I lost him." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Tell me about your son." "Well, he's got holes in his hands and in his feet." Jesus leans forward and says, "Father?" And the old man leans forward and says, "Pinocchio?" That probably wouldn't go well in the church where I came from, but I'm glad I could share it with you. And my mother's at home watching, probably. I brought with me today an empty wallet. There's nothing in it. And I brought it so that I can share with you the importance of this lesson today, a way out of no way. I guess it's been over 40 years ago when a young Marine married a young lady with 2 children, and he'd never been married or had children before. The young lady and the young man could barely rub 2 quarters together. We slept on the floor while our kids slept on army cots. I moved everything that I had from Kansas City, and it was in storage until we found a place. Phil would get a ride every day to the Marine Corps detachment on the Army base where he worked. But before he would leave, I would have him hand me his wallet. Now, at first, this ritual kind of put him off a little bit. It's like, "What are you doing?" So he'd hand me this wallet, which, except for ID, no credit cards, there was maybe $1 or $2 in it. And I was still waiting for the federal government to call me on the job that I had accepted when I moved from Kansas City to Maryland. So we were barely getting by. So I would have him hold his wallet. I'd put my hand on top, his other hand on top, and so forth. And then I would bless the wallet, the empty wallet. I would take my daily word, and I would write out on a 3x5 card the daily word for the day, because I only had one copy. And I lived by that daily word. That got me and my kids through the day, every day. So I would take that 3x5 card and put it in his brown paper bag lunch of peanut butter and jelly some days. Every now and then we'd splurge, we'd have tuna. And then he would go off to work. Now, he never said anything about this. He never mentioned it. He'd just go through the process because he was trying to please his new wife, and he probably thought she's a little off, but I love her anyway. And the Marine Corps birthday is in November, and they have a big celebration on the base. So I and my kids came to the celebration. Gunny Sergeant Hammy, Gunnery Sergeant, Phil's chief, waved his hands out like this when he saw me at the door. "Come here, we've been waiting to see you. We've been waiting to meet you." And I go, "Huh? Why is he waiting to meet me?" And he leads me over to Phil's desk. And underneath the glass on his desk was every 3x5 card. And every morning, all of the Marines gather around Phil's desk to read the word for the day. Now, I didn't know that this empty wallet would someday turn into something much bigger than what little bit we had. But there have been so many blessings since then, too many to tell in this short period of time. But I will tell you that while the wallet may have appeared empty, it was full of love. And Phil and I never forgot that. Whenever our marriage hit the rocks, we would resort back to thinking about those blessed days when we had very little, but we had so much. You've probably had days and times like that in your life, where the little meant so much more than all the wealth in the world. Last Sunday, I gave a lesson in the Bible class on King Solomon. And King Solomon wanted everything. In fact, he had everything. He had more wealth than the wealthiest people in our world today. And he couldn't get enough wealth. He had 700 or 400 wives and 300 intended wives, concubines. That also meant 700 mothers-in-law and 300 possible mothers-in-law. Now, I'm a mother-in-law, so those of you who are, I'm a good one, and I know you are too. My son-in-law can attest to that, and my daughter-in-law. King Solomon kept wanting more and more. Have you ever gone to your refrigerator and you just don't see what you want, but you don't really know what you want, or you open the cabinet and you eat those chips and you just can't get enough? It's just not satisfying. He wasn't satisfied with all that he had. He had this huge mansion and lots of acreage, lots of servants. They say he had to kill 70 cows a day to feed all the people, his family and all those extended family. But he still wanted more, because what he had in material substance didn't satisfy. When Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, he said, "Blessed or happy are they who hunger and thirst after righteousness," right use of our thinking, "for they shall be called the children of God." Blessed are they. Happy are they. King Solomon had everything, but he wasn't happy. And he realized that eventually, that things of themselves don't make you happy. This morning, Reverend Joanna Gabriel, who's here from Toledo, Ohio, and I stopped at the corner at the light on our way here, and this homeless man who's usually there to greet me was there, Steve. So naturally, I rolled down the window and Steve said, "Victory is mine today." And Reverend Joanna and I couldn't help ourselves. We just broke out in song right on the corner in traffic, and Steve joined in, and he knew that song. Joanna, I know you don't have a microphone, but Duke told me that when you were a student here at Unity, you came and sang a lot, and there was one song in particular that he really loved. So we sang. Now, Steve probably has an empty wallet, maybe not a lot of wealth like Solomon, but he had the happiest face. He had joy, and when we began to sing with him, you could feel the joy. Victory is mine. Victory is mine. Victory today is mine. I told sorrow, get me behind. Victory today is mine. Joy is mine. Joy is mine. Joy today is mine. Fear. I told fear, get thee behind. Joy today is mine. Worry. Victory is mine. Victory is mine. Victory today is mine. I told worry, get thee behind, 'cause victory today is mine. You might have an empty wallet. But you can still have victory. You can still have joy. You can still have love. Because there is a way out of no way. So I want to talk to you about that this morning. There's a way out of no way. When the children of Israel in the Old Testament were fleeing from Pharaoh's army under the leadership of Moses in Exodus, they came to a river and there was nowhere to go. And it was a roaring river. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't swim. So if it's more water than a bathtub, I panic. So God told Moses to raise up your rod, and I will separate the waters. Now, to the Israelites, there seemed to be no way out. But Moses followed the commandment and raised his staff, and the waters parted. Now, Pharaoh's army was right behind them on their tails. But the minute after all of them had crossed on dry land, and Pharaoh's army arrived at the edge of the water came back over and drowned them all of the Pharaoh army. And the Israelites had made it safely to the other side. You see, there is always a way out of no way. Always. You may be experiencing a financial difficulty. You may be struggling with relationships. You may have difficulty in your job. You may be wondering, where's the next dollar going to come from? But it's about faith and keeping your faith in God, because there is a way out of no way. When Phil and I look back on how far we've come in 43 years, as my mother would say, my soul looks back and wonders how I got over. How I got over. And that's a song too, but I won't bore you with that one. We have with us today some outstanding people who are visiting us, who found a way, many of them out of no way, like me. Some 6 years ago, before that, when I started on a journey to ministerial school, I had no idea how I would do this. Was I doing the right thing? Was this really for me? So I know what that feels like. And when you get to the end, you're still questioning, God, is this mine to do? But the important thing is perseverance. And I want to applaud all of our students here today who are getting ready to graduate, be licensed, and be ordained by Unity Worldwide Ministries. Please stand. These are some of the finest people in the entire Unity movement, and I might say in the world. In the world. I've had the pleasure the past several years, since I've been ordained, to help, hopefully, some of them reach their goals. And it's like birthing a baby. You know, I feel like Butterfly McQueen, I think that was her in Gone with the Wind, when she said, I ain't never birthed no babies. Not in the ministerial program. And it feels good to be able to give back to what Charles and Myrtle Fillmore gave so freely to us, because they proved over and over again that there is always a way out of no way. Last week, Duke talked about this temple. We're preparing to celebrate our 70th year since the first service was held downstairs. This wasn't even built. And he talked about how the money wasn't necessarily there at first, but the vision was there. Charles Fillmore saw Unity as a haven of inspiration and rest for all people. And he saw that for this temple. He affirmed that Unity Temple is a place of haven and rest for all people. And there was really no way. People were just weren't even recovering from the Depression, and we were still at the tail end of the Depression when he had this vision of this temple. And they sold bonds to pay off the debt they owed to the construction company, who caught the vision and decided that it was so important to have a temple in this location in Kansas City. I'll go ahead and do it, and you can pay me when you start getting money. And the bonds were paid off in record time, and in 1960, they retired the debt. Why? Because they knew, they believed, they had faith that where there's a will, there's a way, and there's always a way out of no way. Some of you students probably hit some snags a few times. I know I did. Times when I wanted to give up, maybe the money wasn't there, couldn't pay the tuition, or maybe the class was really hard, or I had to juggle work and kids and other things. But you found a way out of no way. You persevered. That's what Scripture means when it says you've fought the good fight. You've run your race. Thou good and faithful servant. We also have with us today some of the people who made it possible for Unity Urban Ministerial School to flourish from a dream, a vision by a woman who was told there was no way. There was no way that there would be a Unity Urban Ministerial School that would work. There was no way that there could be a satellite school out of Detroit feeding ministers into Unity worldwide. There would be no way for this program to be online and work. And I'm the first student online. Warren Teach Out followed in my footsteps. Stand up, Warren. Reverend Warren Teach Out. David Adams is not here today. He's normally up here singing, or he's one of our chaplains. But David is following in Warren's footsteps, and we're all creating footprints like Reverend Dr. Ruth Mosley did when she created the Unity Urban Ministerial School for all of us to follow in. And Reverend Dr. Catherine Thomas is back there, and Reverend Joy Walker, and Reverend Julian Tellisford, all heralding Unity Urban Ministerial School and the Unity movement. Reverend Verita Foster, who manages our office in Detroit, and I mentioned Reverend Joanna Gabriel right here on the front row. And there are probably others. If I don't see you and haven't called your name, please know that, as my mother would say, charge it to my head and not my heart. In Philippians 4:6-7, we read, "Be careful of nothing, but in everything by prayer and with gratitude, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." What is that saying? What was Paul saying to the church in Philippi? He was saying, there is always a way out of no way. And in Unity, we say the Spirit of the Lord goes before us, and our way is made smooth and easy. We might not see the path ahead of us. As Dr. King said, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just one step at a time. You know, it's amazing how this victory thing works when we think about a way out of no way. We think about Jesus in the New Testament feeding the 5,000 with 5 fish and 2 loaves of bread. Now, I fed a few people, you know, company coming to the house, but I don't think I could manage with 5,000 on 5 fish and 2 loaves of bread. But there is a way out of no way. You may have heard of Eddie Rickenbacker, who was a World War I pilot. And he got stranded when he was traveling to the Pacific in 1942. He was a passenger on a plane that crashed. And he was stranded on a raft for 24 days. And he was starving and about to die when a quail landed on his head. You see, there is a way out of no way, even when you least expect it. And if you think about it, I'm putting this in different terms, but just think about your own life. How many times have you experienced something totally unexpected? You might say, out of the blue. That was a rich blessing for you. Totally unexpected. We need not forget those things, just like I will never forget this empty wallet. This empty wallet means more to me today than all the money I might have anywhere, all the assets I might have. This tells me that there's always a way out of no way. We applied for a loan to get some furniture because it didn't look like I was going to get all my furniture from Kansas City, and we just knew we weren't going to get it. And this was shortly after I started this ritual, and Phil would borrow a car, and on Saturdays we'd go to the Magnolia Furniture Company in Edgewood, Maryland. And we touched the furniture. And he's a great dreamer. He's from a family of 10, so he's a greater dreamer than I am. I'm from a family of 3, I'm the baby. I didn't do a lot of dreaming. I didn't get everything I wanted, but usually if I asked or begged long enough, I'd eventually get it. My brother and sister tell a different story, but anyway. But he knows how to envision, and he taught me that. How to look at something and believe it before you receive it. So we would go to this furniture store, and I'd finally say, I don't want to go down there anymore. It's just depressing. He'd say, why? Don't you know how to dream? Well, I had his empty wallet and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and my daily word and my kids, but I just couldn't quite grasp that. And the man at the Magnolia Furniture Store noticed that we were constantly coming in there rubbing on all of his furniture. He said, what are your names? And Phil was in uniform usually because he'd borrow a car right after work. And he said, oh, you know, I was in the Marine Corps. And he started a conversation. And then he said, well, what is it that you're looking for? And we told him the pieces that we thought we would like, but we don't have the money. He says, well, when do you want it delivered? And I said, but we don't have the money. He says, no, you didn't answer my question. When did you want it delivered? And I said, well, tomorrow, but we don't have the money. Phil was at work when they delivered the furniture, and I was biting my nails. You know, they're going to bring it, and they're going to take it back. So he went to the credit union that day, and he applied for a loan. So he comes home, and with his empty wallet, and he opens it up, and he says, as you can see, I didn't get the loan that we asked for. And then he got this big smile on his face. He said, I got more than we asked for. I got enough for the furniture, and we can buy groceries for a month. There's always a way out of no way when you raise your consciousness. And I'm grateful that I married a man who's a dreamer, who knows how to envision. I grew up thinking, I'll believe it when I see it. But I didn't learn until through him and then Unity that I'll see it when I believe it, because God will make a way out of no way. So I want to give you a little more temple trivia about a way out of no way. There was a man who came here and became the minister in the mid-70s. His mother had been a minister in Virginia, and his name is Dr. Paul Barrett. Dr. Barrett later became director of Unity School, I believe, and I am so honored that one of my first teachers at Unity School of Ministerial and Religious Studies in the 90s, the early 90s, was Reverend Laura Barrett Bennett. Where my office is located upstairs in the manse was near her bedroom. She was in college when they lived in the manse. She followed in her grandmother's and her father's footsteps, and she became not only a Bible scholar, an author, but one of the greatest Bible teachers I've ever had, metaphysical Bible teachers I've ever had. She has been sharing with me this wonderful opportunity to facilitate the Sunday morning metaphysical Bible interpretation class we call This Ain't Like Your Mama's Bible Class. Or grandma's, right? Depending, if you grew up in Unity, it may be just like it. And so we have just enjoyed this, and Laura has put out her second book, and it's The Language of God, Metagetics, and the Bible. She's going to be leaving us. She's going to take over as senior minister of Unity of Bon Air in Richmond, Virginia in July. And so if you haven't been to the Bible class, and this is a paid political announcement, you are welcome to come to the Bible class and get a little bit of Reverend Laura before she leaves. She'll be here the next couple of Sundays. The second publishing of the book is due out in a couple of weeks. We will have a book signing, but it is very powerful. And today's meditation will be a portion of her book on prayer. So when you get a chance after service, just say hello to Reverend Laura. I hope I didn't miss anybody as my eyes fool me. I'm sure there's some other Unity ministers that I need to recognize, but we are here all together for the Unity Convention, which starts tomorrow evening. But before that, the licensing, graduation, and ordination of our newest Unity ministers will take place at Unity Village at 4 o'clock in the chapel, free of charge. No graduation tickets. So if you want to come and wish them all well, please join us. I heard this story this week, and I'm going to close with this, about a way out of no way. It's amazing when I start off on a talk, things start coming. And even this morning, you know, Spirit was saying, say this, say that. I'm going, shut up, I've already written the thing. It just goes and goes. But this woman, this is a true story, in late May, was checking in at American Airlines. She had just come back from traveling abroad. She's a young woman. She's a student, a law student at the University of Arizona, Arizona State University. Unfortunately, the airline had a new policy, $50 for your check bags. And all she had was cash, and they wouldn't accept her $50. You know, we're in a plastic world. When they say paper or plastic at the grocery store, it's not just the grocery store. They either accept paper or plastic. She only had paper because this is a new thing that I learned last year when Phil and I were out of the country. You've got to tell your credit union or your bank that you're traveling, or they will shut you down. So because of security breaches and hackers, it's a safety thing, but know that. Well, she didn't realize that the airlines was going to charge for her check bag. She tried rearranging some things, but then it made her other bags overweight, so she would have to pay more for that. She was stuck. A young man she didn't know came up behind her because all they told her was, we're sorry, ma'am, there's nothing we can do. We can't take cash here. You're going to have to go back to the reservation desk. You're going to have to go back through, and you're going to miss your flight. So you're going to have to make another flight. And she was devastated. This young man, stranger, comes up behind and says, how much is it? And they said, $50, sir, but it has to be a credit card. He says, no problem. He whips out his credit card, pays for it. She says, I'll pay you back. He says, don't worry about it. Pay it forward. She gets on the plane, and as she's passing through first class, she sees him sitting there. And she takes out her wallet. She attempts to try to give him the $50 again. He said, ma'am, you don't owe me anything. Just pay it forward. She tweets this all over the world. She set Twitter on fire with this story on May 30th of this year. And when I read it on CBS on my AOL, I got really excited because that's talking about a way out of no way. She had no way to get home because she didn't have plastic that she could use right then. Later on, she found out that this was Jermaine Gresham, a tight end for the Arizona Cardinals. How about that? A way out of nowhere. That was a quail that landed on her head. A way out of no way. So I just want to close with leaving you thinking about when you are adrift, feeling like you're on a raft by yourself, all alone in an island where nobody's around, you have issues that you're facing and you're not sure what to do, just know, when you go within, you speak to the God in you. You open that empty wallet and you affirm there is always a way out of no way. The Spirit of the Lord goes before me, and my way is made smooth and easy. It may not appear at that moment. It was years before this wallet had a few more dollars in it that we could really use to move forward in our lives. But we had the faith that one day, victory would be ours. And so today, victory is mine. Joy is mine. Love is mine. Today. How about you? Think about that as we move into meditation.